to Corpstruction, the podcast of the Tulsa District, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Today I'm actually in Huntsville, Alabama at the U.S. Army Engineer Support Center, Huntsville, or as it's more affectionately called in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Huntsville Center. I'm currently with Stephanie Woods. Stephanie is a registered interior designer from the Engineering Directorate of the Support Center here. Stephanie, welcome to Corpstruction, and thank you for taking the time to sit down and do this interview with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for the opportunity.
So, Stephanie, you're working on a project at Fort Sill as an interior designer. Fort Sill is in the Tulsa District AOR, and now you all don't have to go through us to do this type of work, right? You're without borders, and you kind of get direct requests from the installations?
Well, so for the Huntsville Center, what we typically do here, most of us, there's about 30 designers here, a little over 30 designers that support mainly furniture missions and interior design having to do with that. So we have, for this Fort Sill project that you're specifically talking about, we have a furniture project going on there. So we work on a PDT that procures furniture for installations all over the world. So you're right. We typically take projects that have come through the districts and actually, look through the FF&E packages of that and make it a procurable package.
How does somebody, we were talking earlier and you told me you were from Florence, Alabama.
That's right.
And you went to school at Auburn.
Yes. War Eagle. I have to.
You went to school at Auburn.
I took a vow that I would.
you had to get a War
I had to
Eagle?
do that upon graduation. I had to agree.
I'll give you respect for that. So you went to Auburn and you did your undergraduate. What was your undergraduate?
In interior design. Okay. They've got a great interior design program at Auburn. Alabama does too. Mm-hmm. Of course, there's plenty around the U.S., but that's where I went. It was amazing. I got a really great design background there. And then I also did a graduate degree. I have my master's in building construction. So that was always one of those things where I was so close to graduating for undergrad, and I thought, gosh, if I was going to do anything different, it would be that. It would be building science. And so I was so lucky that the Corps gave me an opportunity to actually earn my master's in construction management there also at Auburn. So I can't believe how fortunate I was to do that, but it's been wonderful.
Well, that's really neat. That's interesting. So you went through the education program that the Corps has for your master's.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how did you end up working for the Army? Because you must have been thinking yeah. You have this. We all have these like sort of preconceived notions about
Sure.
things. So and then you're like, there's this job for the U.S. Army Engineering
Yes.
Support Center. How did you end up?
How does
here?
that happen, right? Yeah, no, it's when, it's funny because there are so many times, I guess, in all of our lives, I've been just so fortunate. I would love to say, yes, I worked hard, right? And I would love to say that that's what got me all the opportunities. But the truth is I was really fortunate along the way. So when I was graduating from Auburn in undergrad, I had a mentor pull me aside and say, why do you want to go to Huntsville? It's too sleepy. You need to go somewhere else. You need to be thinking about Nashville or, maybe Atlanta. You need to go and I said, I just really love Huntsville. It's got a cool vibe. I think it's going to be something someday. I think I'm going to have opportunity there. I'm going. So she actively tried to talk me out of that. And so against her wishes, right, I came to Huntsville. I got a job at an architectural and design firm in downtown Huntsville, which was so much fun. And I absolutely adored it. It was a small business. Everybody was really tight. We pulled together to make things happen. It was just, I got such a great foundation and introduction to design working there. And one of the things that we worked on were government projects. We did a lot of commercial. We did some educational, some healthcare, but we worked on a lot of government projects really right out here at Redstone Arsenal. And so I had put together some of those CID packages, for the structural interior design as well as the FF&E package that goes out.
And when you say FF&E, sorry to interrupt
you.
I'm
sorry.
What does that mean for people who may not know the
Absolutely.
acronym?
I guess I have worked for the government long enough to just throw out those acronyms, right?
No, we all do it.
So it's fixtures, furniture, and equipment.
Okay.
So really what you're looking at typically for administrative type facilities is all of the office furniture, your training, and all of that. So all of the furniture that's going to outfit that facility has got to be specified and developed so that we ensure that there's competition and that it's going to work for the end users.
Okay. So you ended up coming to work for the
Yeah,
Huntsville
so
Center,
I worked with, for those projects, those government projects at the Arsenal that went through Mobile District. So I was working with a couple of designers there. They would review my work and everything. So I got kind of a little more information about what happens on the government side, and I was interested. And how does everybody get a job? A friend of a friend, and that sort of thing. So I first took a position as a contractor and worked supporting the furniture team. I did that for a year, and then 2011 started here as a full-time government employee for the same thing, doing furniture mostly.
What are some of the projects you've worked on? Because we'll get into the one at Fort Sill a little bit later, but what are some of the other projects you've worked on around the country?
So we typically do, so for furniture in general, right? For the furniture team, we typically do about 150 to 200 projects a year.
Wow.
Every year. So we're all over the place. I mean, it is, we do not have borders when it comes to that. We have researched difficult electrical requirements for places like Camp Zama. We have worked all over Europe. We have worked all over the States, obviously. Even in tiny Diego Garcia, we're doing barracks projects there where we're buying furniture for those barracks places. So really all over. And it's a great opportunity because, it's one of those things where as an interior designer, I could support government projects, right, working for an A&D firm. But the position that I have here allows me to directly kind of give back support the servicemen and women, the civilians that work for the federal government, and I hope you can hear that. I take a lot of pride in that, and really all the designers I work with, every designer I've met across the Corps, district designers, we all take a lot of pride in that, and so it's so much fun working with a group of people that we get to use our talents and our education and our experience to support this way, but they're also equally dedicated to advancing the profession. So I feel really fortunate to work here and work with the people that I do.
When we go into a building, whether, into a government or military building, right, and we don't really think about the thought process that goes into, the design or the layout of where the furniture is and why there's a desk here versus here or cabinet here versus here. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about the importance of that, of how that works, of designing that layout and deciding on what furniture fits that layout appropriately?
Yeah, absolutely. The main mission of any interior designer is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the end users. So we have for instance, one of the easiest things to think about or to point this out, I don't think a lot of people consider, is all of the workstations, all those powered workstations that you see. We're in an office right now with wood case goods, but just through the windows you can see all these, paneled workstations. So those are all powered. So that all has to be coordinated with the electrical for the building. And quite simply, if it's not coordinated or coordinated correctly, it's not going to work. Right. So, and that's always going to end up costing the government more money. So obviously that's something that we're always focused on. We want it to work. We want it to work the first time so that we try to, we're good stewards of the taxpayer's dollar. And, and then down to the finishes. The finishes have to be appropriate. The styling has to be appropriate. The furniture team, obviously I'm the team lead of the furniture team for the designers. So that's my main focus. We also have a team lead here, Carol Elder, that supports medical designs. We have several designers that support the medical design as well. But here for furniture, one of the things really that started this program here, this centralized furnishing program here, is that IMCOM, Installation Management Command, years ago in the mid to late 90s, decided that they wanted to really standardize. They started seeing that when I'm going into, and Army barracks is how it started with the barracks side of the house. When I'm going into a barracks in, Fort Sill versus one that is in, whether it's at Joint Base San Antonio, something like that, you've got, there's great differences between that furniture, because at the time, people that were working there were kind of other duties as assigned. They were trying to develop these requirements and coordinate the installation of it, and it must have been a nightmare, right? And so you end up with, not only is that very difficult and probably time consuming, you're probably spending a little more money than is strictly necessary, or maybe you're not spending enough. Maybe you're going to, the local office store and picking up a chair that's going to last you about 6 months, So Installation Management Command said, no, I really want to standardize. I want things to be appropriate. I want it to be durable furniture that's going to last. And they came to us. We were fortunate enough to get that work to develop some standards. So we've got, we're going to make sure that you get a decent product that is going to hold up. We're going to make sure that wood case goods is appropriate for your higher level folks. You're going to make sure you get that. For the folks that that's not necessarily appropriate for, we're going to make sure that we're looking for workstations and metal laminate desks, or maybe laminate case goods. There's all sorts of things. So we really, like I said, we take it really seriously. We want to make sure that it's appropriate for the space, that it's the best use of the space, and that it's right for the government as well. We want to make sure that we're getting the most value out of that effort.
So the Army looked at it and they were saying, well, it's not fair that my platoon sergeant is taken away from doing management and leadership functions with his people,
right,
or her people, and then they've got to go in and try to measure rooms and figure out, well, how many desks can I get in here?
Right.
And
exactly.
They may not be thinking about it in the same way that someone who works in that area thinks about. And so I know you probably get this question a lot. There's the feng shui thing, right? Like, I bet you get that. So how do you incorporate that, or do you incorporate that, or is that has to do with flow, right?
Sure, it does. It does. I would say that while we don't necessarily consider feng shui in everything that we do, we do make sure that the space layout is appropriate. We want to make sure that we observe the applicable codes and requirements here. We want to make sure that everyone, regardless of ability, can do what they need to do, whether it is, they can work in the administrative office that they do without any issues here and have appropriate furniture for them, or whether it's appropriate for some of these, really tall folks in the Army, or in the Navy. So we take it seriously. We do a lot of research to make sure that we can provide the furniture that works best for them, and within all of the regulations that go along with government. Got to make sure you have competition. Got to make sure it's, you're not gold plating anything, but also that it's durable. So There's a lot of back and forth there, but it's just like everything else. It's, if you have somebody that specializes in that, first of all, it takes it off of your plate, right? If it's another duty as assigned, takes it off of your plate, and you start building those lessons learned, and you get better at it. Our program, we buy so much furniture that you may not see those savings realized if you're buying it if you're one person, or one group trying to acquire this furniture for one installation. But you're probably going to see that if you've got, if you're buying so much furniture, if we do so much work, we're going to realize some savings there above and beyond what the GSA savings are.
And I guess assuming an employee has adequate space to do their job function in the office,
right?
I think if I remember correctly, like one of the most important issues to employees that affect their work environment is a simple question of like, well, where's the break room? How far is it from my desk?
Sure, wayfinding,
right?
Yeah.
So can you talk about that? Like,
Sure.
What are you thinking about when you're designing a space, when you're looking at the room and you're saying, okay, here's here's what I have. Do you know the number of people that are supposed to go in there first? Or?
Yes, of course. Yeah, you got to have some of those basics of how many people are using this, what are they using it for, how are they using the space that they're in now, how is that working or not working. You know, it's really just a critical thinking walking through it. But it's that part is routine. You're kind of stepping through the steps, right? Kind of walking through the steps of how can I make this work for them. But what is intuitive is that, you know, the built environment does contribute to the satisfaction that an end user gets from that space. So, you know, certainly it contributes to you want people to have pride in their space. Everybody, you know, like I said, we're very serious about how we want this to. Of course, it's, you know, it's for the federal government. We've got to be responsible there. But we want you to really enjoy it. We want you to appreciate it. We want you to take some pride in it. So certainly, you know, we're looking at, you know, it's not to downplay finishes, right? Because everybody thinks interior designer, they immediately go to finishes. Finishes is an important part of what we do, but it's the icing on the cake, right? It starts with that requirements gathering and really working through with the end user what could work best here. And certainly wayfinding too. I mean, we've got, you know, signage contracts that we put together as well sometimes to help people find some of those basic spaces, you know, and just kind of have ownership of it, get comfortable in a space.
And your group does, you do the purchasing, you do the designing, and what other functions fall into that realm that
Yeah,
you
so
work in?
we do a lot of things for a lot of different projects. So we do have design projects that are, you know, we've got an effort right now for COS. We've got Marcia Jackson leading that here, where she's looking to, working with Scott Wickett headquarters, she's looking to take some of these COS designs, Center of Standardization designs, and, you know, really kind of marry what we know about for instance, what MCOM will support, what they will pay for, and what their expectations are, with what the end users are wanting or what the design is already there. So we're looking for ways to use our expertise to really save the government money, to standardize that project, you know, that product that you get and the expectations that you get. We don't want to recreate the wheel every time. You know, we don't want designers that work in the private sector, A&D firms that are doing the government projects like I did. We don't want you to have to try to recreate the wheel. We want to provide as much as possible because that's going to save money over the long run. So obviously, you know, that's a big consideration for us.
Do you, with a new building, and I know the Center of Standardization plays into this as well, with a new structure, I was actually talking to some of our design people last week in Tulsa, and they were talking about designing the electrical and mechanical and control system stuff and where everything goes, and they were showing me some of their plans. But in general, there's a standardized layout for a certain type of building, whether
Sure.
it's a child development center or
That's right.
a barracks or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Do they typically, at what stage in that process is the interior design team brought in? Is that at the very end, or do you all have input along the way? Because I know deviations can exist if it's necessary, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So at what stage do they bring you in, and how do you work with them?
Well, so one thing I want to point out, and maybe I wasn't clear enough about this, there is, you know, a lot of these designs for actual facilities are coming through those district designers,
Mm-hmm.
whether they are creating them or whether they are reviewing them.
Okay.
So it's not just me, right? It's not just Huntsville, where we may be designers that are brought into the process, but we probably are not the only designers brought into the process. So we've got people out in the districts that are working those MilCon projects, and they are, like I said, working really closely with the end users and trying to develop those requirements that work for them. And then at some point it will be transferred to us for acquisition. So we do have furniture acquisition that happens, and we may not see that until it's a fairly put together design, then it comes to us. But we also have projects where we are out there doing the design for people. You know, we've got folks that just reached out from from overseas, from Israel, that we're supporting, and really cool project. Got several buildings that kind of go in this one project. It's great. So we do a lot of things. The Center of Standardization, now when you're working hand in hand with the COS folks, obviously that's not for a specific installation. That's just in general. But yes, we have, as I said, Marsha Jackson, her team are working with the COS. They may get the standard design, and then they're going to marry it with what we have seen in the past for furniture acquisition to build some of these required documents that can just be used over and over. So that, again, we're not paying for that every single
Right.
time. So it really depends on the kind of project that you're working and the kind of program that you're supporting. Would determine kind of when we're introduced
What
in the
stage
process.
you're introduced?
Right.
Have you all ever done any project? Have you ever worked on any projects in at like Fort Hood or?
Oh
or-
yes, yeah. We have several projects every year for Fort Hood. We've got some battalion headquarters going on. We've got that actually should be installing now. We've got some. Certainly barracks projects, obviously, with it being such a major training installation, you know, you're going to have a lot of barracks projects for that. So we're certainly buying barracks furniture for Fort Hood. We've done quite a bit for Hood over the years, or with Hood over the years.
You said Navy earlier, and it kind of caught my attention.
Yeah.
Because I mean, people typically think like ships and berthing areas, and
Right.
you don't get into that world. But
No, we
but
don't.
you do some like Naval Air Station work, or
Well, so yes, what people may not consider, and what I don't think I would have considered beforehand, is that they also have barracks. And they've got plenty of installations, they've got plenty of buildings where they house these folks, and they do their training there. We do a lot of the Navy. We work with CNIC to do a lot of the Navy replacement projects. So while new construction may go to NAVFAC, we're doing a lot of the furniture design and procurement for the replacement projects for Navy. So, and it's been such an amazing program because, the requirements are different. They're different, and the entire program is different. You know, what they're allowed to have is different than Army may be. You see that sometimes with Air Force too, although we don't have as many Air Force projects right now. We've got a few, that are popping up. We've got Kirtland Air Force Base, same thing. It's just amazing to realize there are so many ways to support servicemen and women, as well as obviously civilians that are working for the federal government. And it's all right here in little Huntsville, not all, a lot of it is right here in Huntsville, Alabama. You can do that right here from Huntsville. And it's just such a great opportunity. I don't think I would have gotten the opportunity working at any other private sector architectural firm to work on as many projects as I have been able to working for the Corps.
what is your favorite part? Is that your favorite part? Because it sounds like the supporting that mission is extremely
absolutely.
important to you,
It's okay. I'm going to get mushy, right?
That's fine.
It's ridiculous,
Go ahead.
but I'm going to do it. My absolute favorite part of this position, there's a lot of things that I like, but my absolute favorite part is being able to improve a specification for something that is actually going to make a difference for another person. That is so much fun. If you are working in barracks, if you're writing a spec, if you improve a mattress specification in barracks, and you're buying them better mattresses, more comfortable mattresses, you have actually made a difference in that soldier, or I should say serviceman's life. You're actually making a difference. You improve a pillow spec, it matters, And so it's not just one project, it's, thousands of people that you've had a little bit of influence over. You've been able to support in a way that probably wouldn't have otherwise, and that reach is something that I just can't imagine I would have gotten that anywhere else. So I do. It's my favorite part. It's going in and saying, hey, these are, actually, this is a whole lot better than what I've been getting. This is pretty cool. That sort of thing. It's so silly, but it means so much to hear that when you're out on the installation and you run into some of these end users and they're saying, yeah, this is great. If they're blown away, that's amazing. Who doesn't love that feedback?
You were talking about your mentor, or it sounded like this was your mentor who was telling you to go to Nashville or go to Atlanta, and I guess their hope for you sort of was that you'd end up designing
right.
Homes maybe that would appear on, I don't know, like a television reality show drama or something. Is that kind of, that would be like, you'd see the nice living room in the background while these people are throwing wine glasses at one another or something. Is that?
I hope that was not her intent.
I think that's a big deal in that industry, right? Like that you get to see your product on TV.
You get the reveal and all of that, right? It does seem to be what people think of for interior design, but man, there's a lot of people out here that men and women that are interior designers that are, it's still a very technical job, and certainly, I have a lot of respect and admiration for folks that are in residential interior design, meaning for individual homes.
It's always interesting to me when I go into even like whether it's a boutique business or a corporate business, and like you walk in and you almost attribute that design to the people in the building versus the actual interior design. You don't think about the person who designed that. Like
Absolutely.
But you sort of attribute, like, wow, that's an interest. They were smart to put this in.
That's somebody's baby. That's right. That is somebody's baby.
But and I guess I shouldn't have like directly went straight to the residential or family thing, but even in the corporate world though, but you're still doing this for the government. And
right.
What about that difference between maybe doing it for a business versus doing it for
the government,
the military and the government? And
yeah, it's just for me personally, it is so much more rewarding. One of the coolest projects that I did for the architectural and design firm that I worked with that I loved. One of the coolest projects that I did was cool for some of the same reasons. I loved it for some of the same reasons we're talking about. It was a technical college in South Alabama, and I got to be there. They had this this fun, it's kind of their rec area, and we got a lot of rain to just kind of do what we wanted to do in there. And I was invited to, this big open house. It was the coolest thing, the most rewarding thing was I got to be very quiet and just kind of walk around while other people experienced it for the first time. And that was so rewarding. It was so much fun because, it's students, it's young folks, and they were so excited to get this new facility, and they took so much pride in it. It was such a cool thing to be a part of that, and I feel like I get a taste of that with the Corps because, again, if you're everybody wants to work in a space that they think is cool, everybody does, whether they admit it or not. Everybody does. Everybody wants to lay their head on something that's comfortable, It matters. It contributes, the built environment contributes to that quality of life. And so it's with respect to that I find so much enjoyment out of it. But it's true. It's, I definitely find that, and I get a lot of, positive feedback. I get a lot of positive reinforcement, I guess, working with the government because you're providing these hopefully cool spaces, cool products to somebody. Hopefully it works for them, right? But you're also doing it with a bigger mission of I want to make sure that I'm a good, using a good steward of the the taxpayers' money. I want to make sure that I'm doing what's right, what makes sense for the federal government, and therefore for me, for others. It's for me, it's easy to find a lot of pride in that kind of work. And I think it's that way for really every interior designer I've ever met with the Corps. I mean, the ones I work with here at Huntsville, the district designers out there in the field making things happen, we all take a lot of pride in that. So I'm really excited to be here to talk to you about it.
Yeah, it's so. I was wondering before we sat down for the interview, just how you would approach this. Like I wasn't, because I've never met you before, and
Sure.
and when I was speaking to your PA team here, and they were saying, yeah, we have interior designers, and I'm like, I've got to talk to one of them. I just want to talk to an interior designer. That I had no idea that was even a thing in USACE or
Yeah.
anywhere. I figured we just, like, everybody was contracted out, or
Sure.
so I was really curious, like how do you even find out about that?
Yeah.
How do you even find out that job exists? And then it is interesting. Like, there are things that are out there that you don't know about. And if you were trying to speak to a class of interior design students, and I mean, I imagine the demand in such a small group, because there's only like about 60 of you in the Corps, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then about 30 or so in the.
That's right. A little over 30 are here in Huntsville, a little over 60 in the Corps. There's a few working in project management, a few interior designers working in project management across the Corps, both here and elsewhere. But yeah, if I was speaking to a group.
Yeah, and you were trying to convince them why they should, or at least the cream of the crop of them, why they should come to the
Right,
Corps.
right.
What would you tell them? What would be your
My sales pitch.
Sales pitch? Yeah, your
Yeah.
15-second elevator
Yeah.
speech, as they say.
Oh gosh, wish I had something prepared. I would, honest to goodness, what I would do is I would look at them and say, get as much experience as you possibly can, but consider the government, because I have gotten so many opportunities working for the Corps of Engineers that I wouldn't have gotten elsewhere in a lot of places. Not only do I get to work in projects all over the world, and you get to travel to some of those sometimes, which is pretty cool, but I get to make an impact on thousands of people. Isn't that cool? You touch something that is going to impact hundreds or thousands of people. That's a really cool thing to be able to do. Use your talents and your education and to get that experience in supporting this. It's a bigger mission. It's so much fun to be a part of something, a small part of something that is so much bigger than you, but it's important, And so there's so much opportunity. The education, the master's degree, the course always, there are always opportunities out there to further your education. Take advantage of that. You may not get that everywhere. It's really, to me, it's a no-brainer, and I get that it might not be for everybody, but wow, it's a great opportunity that I think most people would appreciate.
You were talking about Camp Zama, Japan, and Diego Garcia, and where are some of the places you've actually been able to travel to?
So I haven't. Let's see. I've traveled. Well, for the Corps, I typically, so as a team lead, most of the time the designers that are working with those projects are actually going to those places. I've been to plenty of places in all over the continental U.S., but the designers that on my team have been everywhere. They've been to Korea, they've been to Europe, they've been to Japan. They've been all over. It's a really great opportunity. If you want to do this, it's cool. I've gotten opportunities for, while working with the Corps, to support things where I traveled once or twice a month to D.C. and to do live updates for Revit. So you're pulling up the drawings on the Revit screen, you got it, projected, and here you are, you're making all their live updates right there. And you're working with 14s and 15s to do it. It's so exciting. That is so much fun. So why wouldn't you take advantage of that?
Right.
It's a cool place. It's a cool place to work.
Have you had the chance to serve any non-military agencies at all? or have you worked mostly with DoD?
Mostly it's DoD.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly it's DoD.
I do know, like we have quite a few missions that touch other agencies sometimes, whether it's
Right.
Department of Energy or
Right.
even DHS. But is there a project that you worked on that you were like that surprised you the most about, like, wow, we have this, or where you were surprised that we even did a particular mission, or that
Sure, I can talk in generalities.
Okay.
There are some very secure facilities that we've worked on, and there are very specific requirements for the workstations and specifically the data being run through there in a required separation, to ensure that those folks can work safely once they get there. And that is always fascinating. It is so much fun to be in a group of people that are so sharp and so important to the federal government. It's to me, those are some of the most fun things to go see.
Awesome. What have I not asked you that I should have asked you in this interview? Because I know there are things that you wanted to talk about. And
Well, I think I'd like to talk a little bit more about the structural interior design part of it that some of these district designers are doing.
Okay.
So typically, I think people think interior design and they think, okay, finishes. They think maybe they think furniture, probably not. But the structural interior design is everything on the interior. It is, you're doing wall details, you're doing flooring details,
water faucets, right?
all of it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that you're doing that interface with other disciplines that are very technical jobs to do. It's you've got people, of course they're selecting finishes, but they're also working on the reflected ceiling plan for the ceiling. They're making sure that the lighting is coordinated with the sprinklers, with the ducts that are up there. You've got a lot that goes into this. It's a very technical career, and I think if I could do anything, I would like to advocate. I'd like to educate some folks that's the case. These are well-meaning, these are very technical people that are trying to make sure that they do that they provide a space that works, that's functional, but also impressive to be in, enjoyable to be in.
That's fine. How much interaction do you have with the facility managers once we turn over the keys, if they have like a furniture or furnishing issue?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do. We there's lots of people that if there's a warranty issue, they're concerned about this, that, or the other. They're concerned, hey, this isn't working as expected. We're having an issue with this. They'll reach back, and especially if it's after the QA period. So the furniture's been installed. We've looked at it. We've made sure that what's on that contract is what you actually got and what also works for you. But there might, like I said, be warranty issues in the future. So we do hear from people. Typically, our project management folks will hear from those facility managers or technical representatives if it's barracks, and we'll follow up and help support however is needed, to make sure that they get something that works for them.
What about, are you aware of any new or interesting things that are going to be coming into that? I don't know. Are you seeing any trends and things that we're maybe purchasing for FFE or whatever,
Yeah.
that maybe aren't as you don't see in older designs?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. Furniture is like every other kind of design. There's trends, and it's been so impacted lately by, as everything has been, as we all have been to our core, because of COVID. So before COVID, things were let's get as many people in here as we can. Let's pack the space. Let's make sure we get the best use of the space for space planning. And you saw a lot of typical workstations where it's paneled workstations. After COVID, design has really changed. We're having people that are asking a lot more about, separation and focus on the environment, meaning the built environment, meaning I want this place, maybe we're teleworking a lot, we're here a couple of days a week, but I want it to be really pleasant for these people when they're here. I want to make sure that they get sunlight throughout the space, There's a lot of benching that you'll see now, which is just a different kind of furniture. Not so much with the paneled walls, but very, very, there's different levels of mobility that we're being requested to research for these projects. A lot of folks want their products to be able to really be able to reconfigure easily. Because their mission may change, they may have different. Again, so many people are teleworking nowadays that you might have hot spots and touchdown spaces, which are kind of generic places that people can come hook up their laptop if you're only there a day or two out of the week. Sometimes that's the best use of the space, is to make it easy for people to pop in, pop out as they need to, but have that flexibility. So I would say flexibility and reconfigurability are a main focus right now, especially since we've all kind of returned to the office.
Stephanie, I think was there anything else you wanted to touch on?
No, I don't think I have anything else.
Well, I really think that it's just amazing. It was so great to sit down and talk to you about what makes your why, as far as why you're here and why you do what you do. And it's very evident that you are very passionate about what you do. And I just want to thank you for being willing to do the interview in the first place.
I really appreciate the opportunity. I do. It's fun for me to talk about, who we are, what we do, and why we do it. And I appreciate the platform to do that.
Well, thank you very much for talking to me about interior design, because like I said, I had no idea, and it's just fascinating that we have that position in the Corps of Engineers. It's like you learn something new about the Corps every day, and there's so much going on.
Yes.
And it's great that we have people all around the country, especially here. And I know you said little Huntsville, Alabama, but I think the last time
it's
I
growing,
was in,
isn't it?
I mean, this place has grown so much since I was in here back
it's
in
so
2000
much fun. It's so much fun.
2006, in
What?
2007.
Yeah, what a cool, it's full of, where else can you live that's full of actual rocket scientists? You know what I mean? You got engineers all around you. It's a fun place.
And I was actually born right up the road in Rainsville.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah, not too far from here. So it's kind of, I mean, I didn't really grow up here, but I was born right up the road. So it's interesting, to see all the mountains too, coming from the Southwest.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for joining us for Corpstruction. Corpstruction is a production of the Tulsa District U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Public Affairs Office. This episode of Corpstruction was brought to you by the U.S. Army Engineering and Support Center in Huntsville. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.